and welcome back to the Fix My Fees podcast, where we spotlight incredible business owners and leaders across the country in multiple different industries. Each episode here is designed to highlight the stories, the wins, the challenges, and lessons learned from entrepreneurs who are building real impact in their industry. Today's guest is really doing amazing work, and I'm actually very excited to speak with her about what she does, really give you guys a good sense of who she is and why she does what she does. So really to start off, who do I have the pleasure speaking with this afternoon?
So I'm Amy Sklar. I'm a matrimonial and family law attorney. I also do some real estate too, but the main focus of my practice is matrimonial and family law. I have been in practice for over 45 years, which is like a whole lifetime. I've watched this field of law evolve from a time when we had alimony and sole custody to moms all the time, to a time when now we have joint custody and it's possible that women pay support to men. So it's a completely different world now than it was when I first started. When I first started in this field, the reason I chose this area of law is I graduated law school in 1980. And in 1980, New York State passed what's called the equitable distribution law, which was the property distribution or settlement portion of divorces. And it was a brand new law. And all of the old timers who were in this were as experienced as me now because it was a brand new law. So here's this newcomer. I know just as much, maybe even more than them, because I learned it in law school and they did not. So I figured this was a good time for me to enter into this field because I could be on an equal footing with these people who were way more experienced than I was. I also went into this field because when I was in law school, there were 50% women, 50% men. However, the profession was completely dominated by men. It was the first year that law schools were accepting 50% female. So when I stepped out after I passed the bar exam into the legal field world, it was all men. And I felt that as a woman, I would make an impact with certainly female clients who were looking for that shoulder to cry on and an ear to listen to them, especially in divorce and family law cases. So that's how I ended up choosing this area of law.
That's amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
I mean, the fact is, like, I can only imagine really like how that would feel, going into this field and it is dominated by men.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was
did you feel like, so sorry to cut you off, Amy, did you feel
no,
really like a sense of like I meant like intimidation or more like kind of like that badass mentality of like, okay, I'm going in there and I'm going to rock the boat.
so, when before I went to law school, I went to the University of Vermont. That was my undergraduate education. And I designed my own major, which now in most colleges is a real major. It was not at the time. It was called Women's Studies. And I was very much into the feminist movement. I was the head of every consciousness raising group on the campus at the University of Vermont. So it's funny because I took my daughter there for an audition when she was applying to college. And on the list of departments was women's studies, which was incredible because I was the pioneer, not to pat myself on the back, but I was. So it was kind of astonishing for me. So when I graduated from law school, I already had this background of fighting for women's rights and awareness and all of that. When I entered into the profession and it was all male, I did, along with my other female attorneys, we had to face all of the issues that you now learn about in school, that you now read about. Like, I asked my boss at one time for a raise, and I told him how much I wanted so that I could be up to par with the other male attorneys who had as much experience as me and as old as I am, same number of years out of law school. And he gave me half of what I asked for. And I said to him, I don't understand that, but so-and-so earns this much in that law firm. Why are you only giving me this? And he said, well, he's a man. He's going to have to support a family. You're a woman. Those are the things that used to really, really happen. There were other things that used to happen, like how about going to court and having men who were used to being without females in the courthouse as attorneys, and now they have to deal with me. And I was never one of those women who said, I'm going to dress only in men's suits and short hair and look like a guy. That was never my style. My style is what you see. Okay. So this was culture shock for them. And they used to say some pretty disgusting things that we had to put up with because there was no other place to go with it. There was no Me Too movement at that time. And if we didn't put up with some of that stuff, we were never going to make it. I'm now in a position at this point in my life where the funny thing is I will say to my young female associates, you have no idea what life was like back then. Here's just a glimpse of it, and I'll give them a glimpse. And I will say to them, we were really groundbreakers for you guys, but we didn't realize it at the time. As you're going through it, you don't realize that this is a movement that we are creating. So it was tough. I was once at a Women's Bar Association meeting, and one of the judges came in to address us because he had a very serious question for the women in our profession. And the serious question was, when I call the calendar in the morning and I call up a case and a man and a woman come up to the bench to talk, and the man's dressed in a three-piece suit holding a briefcase, and the woman is dressed in a dress and gets up. I'm not sure if she's an attorney or not. Do you think I have the right to ask her if she's admitted to the bar? What? So that was the kind of stuff that we faced, not just from the other attorneys, but judges. There was one female judge on all of Long Island, New York, that was on the bench. One. We have hundreds and hundreds of judges, one female, because there were no, this was obviously Ruth Bader Ginsburg was alive at that time and doing her thing. And we were all fighting the fight right along with her, so it is kind of incredible. And I don't ever think about it like that. It's when my kids point it out to me, like, Ma, you know what you did? And then I say to myself, wow. So yeah, so that's pretty much the story of my background in this field.
So first of all, I really do appreciate you sharing all of that. And I really want to also touch base on, because this kind of hits on the point of some entrepreneurs that can you really get going, right? Maybe they pass like a few hurdles or challenges or whatnot, but sometimes they feel stuck, and sometimes they don't really know exactly what to do when things are really getting challenging. So the reason I say that is because when you walk into a field that is truly male dominated, and it is intimidating, and like you were even saying, it was a challenging phase in life of really going, pushing through that and getting to where you are, and having really women really play a big role in the law industry as well nowadays. What was like kind of like that mental switch of I'm gonna keep going through, because you could have definitely stopped. You could have been like, okay, you know what, like this isn't mine. Like I have my law degree, but okay, it's male dominated. I'm just gonna kind of stay low key, or maybe you change your whole career path. But why? But let me ask you this: why did you keep pushing through the hard stuff?
Well, at the very beginning, I had to make a choice as to what my image was. A lot of
Hmm.
attorneys have calling cards, gimmicks, whatever. Like there's
Hmm.
an attorney that only wears bow ties, for example, or an attorney who walks into court with a top hat. Some of this stuff is crazy stuff, don't get me wrong, but it is a thing. And one of the things that I realized very early on was a male attorney in my field, who's a big guy, has his stature and his presence as his quote unquote intimidating factor. He can use that to his advantage. So I had to decide, what is it that I will use as my, I don't know if it's intimidating, but my stand on who I am. And I decided very early on that I'm a woman. I'm glad I'm a woman. I'm thrilled with who I am. And so I'm going to promote that. So I went to court, for example. I always wore suits or dresses with skirts back in the day. I had actually purple hair. I had at the time that was a big thing, big eggplant color hair. And I had long nails. And while other women that graduated when I graduated or entered into the field when I entered into the field didn't look like that, because I think they thought they had to look like the men in order to compete with the men. I said, I'm not going that route, because I think that that doesn't really put them out there to be respected as to who they are. Why would you want to be someone else? Be who you are. So my advice to entrepreneurs who are going out there in any field is find a way to be confident in who you are, forgetting about your field, forget about your merchandise, forget about what business you're in. Figure out who you are. What is your personal image in this business and or professional world? And then go with it. Don't try to look like or be like somebody else. You need to find your own path. Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people who followed my same path, not because they followed it because I told them to, because they had the same ideas as me. But there are people who go out there and they think that they have to be and look like someone else. For example, one of the things I prided myself in was whomever I worked with. And by the way, most of my 45 plus years that I'm in this field, I had my own practice. But I did work for people. And when I would go to a meeting or a conference or a court appearance with the people that I was working, I didn't just sit back and sink into the background. I didn't do that. I participated in the conversation. I lent to the conversation my expertise, even though these people who were with were much bigger experts than me. But I didn't just become a wallflower. I have a son who's also an entrepreneur. One of the things I'm so proud about is every job he ever got before he became his own business owner, he would they would invite him into a board meeting, and he would open his mouth and participate at 24 years old with all of these people who have been in this industry that he's in for many, many years. If you do that, my associates who do that, they impress me the most. They're the ones who I take to trial with me. They're the ones who I give the most attention to, because I know they're already on the road before they even started. So that's the thing that I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give to an entrepreneur is find who you are, build confidence in that image, and stick with it and participate. Don't sit back and watch. Maybe you're going to be wrong. It's okay. You're allowed to be wrong. People are allowed to make mistakes. And you're allowed to say, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll get it for you. You have to be confident enough to do that.
I love that. I mean, I truly agree 100% with what you just said. And also, when you touched on being your own person and not comparing yourself to others, comparison, I've learned even from my years of, trial and errors and different avenues that I've went down. Comparison, when you are comparing someone's chapter 20 to your chapter 2, that you won't ever get to your chapter 20, because that's just all you're gonna be thinking about someone else. And really you're robbing that peace for yourself and your joy in the journey, no matter how hard the journey is. If you find joy in the journey of all of it, especially down the entrepreneurial route, it's gonna be
Right.
much, much more satisfying and much, much more really just enjoyable when you keep stacking small wins and really get outside your own comfort zone. So I really love the fact that you said that, Amy. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, absolutely.
And so with that being said, Amy, and in your successful practice, I really want to know what makes you stand out to other lawyers in your field of expertise. Why would customers want to reach out to you and say, "Hey, Amy, can you help me with this? Amy, I want to hire you."
I believe, it has always been my belief, that my role as somebody's attorney, especially in connection with a divorce or a family law matter, is, for the most part, have clients who can't really speak for themselves. First of all, they don't know the law. And second of all, they have been many times intimidated or taken a back seat in their relationships. They need a mouthpiece. Attorneys are mouthpieces. That's what we are. We speak for you. So you tell me your story. And one of the things that I find very important is that initial meeting, that first consultation. I have to sell myself, but I have to pay attention to what my prospective client is saying and what their needs are. Because then when I go to court with them 2 months later and I tell their story and fight for them, when we walk out of that courtroom and they turn to me and say, wow, you really paid attention. You really listened. I didn't even remember that I told you that. That's the thing that I think puts me apart from my colleagues. I have colleagues who will give, for example, a consultation to somebody. And the first thing they say is, so I've been in practice so and so this many number of years. This is all I do. I'm great. You came to me because you know I'm great. Give me $10,000 and we can move on from there. Other than that, I have nothing else to discuss. I never do that. Never. My consultations last an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. Sometimes I could sit with them for many hours because sometimes you have a client who's sitting here hysterical. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, you're
Hyster- Hysterical crying, and I need to make them feel better, make them know that if they hire me, their life is not going to fall apart. I promise you, at the end, you will be whole and we will get through this together. Most of my consultations end with a big hug because they feel so good that I have their back. When I go into court guns blazing. I don't care who my adversary is because it doesn't matter. What matters is the person, the man or the woman that sits in that bench who's going to make decisions. They need to know what's going on. I don't really care what my adversary says. If you look up my reviews online, I cannot tell you how many people who will say that I'm a pit bull. Now, I'm not a pit bull in my personal life. I am much more relaxed in my personal life. But when I walk into court, usually everyone laughs here in my office. As I'm leaving the office to go to court, I'll say, time. I love what I do. I love representing people and helping people. And I love getting them the result that they want. You can't always get 100% of the result, but you could get close to it. And so basically, what sets me apart from some of my colleagues is I do go to bat. I really go to bat for my clients. I was in court yesterday representing a man who was represented by one of my colleagues, not in my firm, in another firm. He left that firm to come to us. At the end of the court appearance, he said to me, wow, so and so didn't do that for me before. I never felt confident that someone had my back. And that astonishes me. That is the whole purpose for being an attorney. So I don't understand what an attorney is thinking when they think they just could walk in, say, okay, just give me another date, and not present their client's position. I just don't understand that. So I think that's one of the things that sets me apart from some of my colleagues. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of colleagues that do it the same way as me. I'm not the only one out there that does it this way. But I also loved what I do. I love, I love representing people. I love trying cases. That's the fun of what I do. Most cases don't get tried. Don't get me wrong. Most cases get settled. The fact that I love trying cases, that sets me apart from a lot of my colleagues. Because if negotiations are falling apart, I can say with confidence, okay, let's go to trial. It's okay with me. Let's go to trial. Judge, give me a trial date. And the other side goes into panic mode if they don't love trying cases like me, because now they're worried, I don't even try cases. And she is so confident in herself in trying this case. I'm going to have a big problem. That's the other piece that sets me aside. The other thing is, and I can do this more so now, although I did when I had young kids too. I am always present and I'm always available. If a client calls up and says, I can't meet with you during the day because I'll get fired from my job, I have to meet with you at 5 or 6 o'clock. I say, okay. And I'll sit here till 9 o'clock with them. There are other attorneys who I know who won't do that. I work 9 to 5. You can't see me within those hours. Goodbye. You're always looking for business. You're always looking for that client to pay your retainer and then to continue to represent them so that you're billing them the whole time that you're representing them. Attorneys who can't make themselves available to the needs of their community, their population who is going to hire them, I think they're missing the boat.
Well, so I would say this, Amy, and again, I really do love a lot of points that you are making here. And I've also came across other entrepreneurs that, and there's nothing wrong with this, right? There's nothing wrong with doing it for the money. There's nothing wrong with like that why, right? Everyone has their own different whys. But I do think that sometimes when people just simply do it for the money, well, what if I don't know, what if you hit your milestone? Like the number that you wanted. Like you're the thing about us humans, we always want to keep striving, right? Like we always want to keep bettering ourselves. I feel like there's never going to be like I hit this and then I'm just like totally okay, because all of a sudden the mentality gets like, well, wait, what if I can also do this or get to this milestone? So long story short, where I'm getting at is because you keep and really emphasizing how much you love what you're doing, I just think that that really builds a bigger purpose and a bigger why, rather than just simply the monetary value that comes into into your bank account, into your pockets. But the fact is that you are making a big impact for these individuals, these ladies and men that are going through a very, very tough time. And also, I'm not gonna lie, Amy, even just speaking to you for a little bit, even during this podcast, I would be pretty intimidated that you want to go to trial. You're like, okay, you know what? Let's go to trial. I'll be, hold on a second. How about we try to settle this again?
Funny story. I was once in front of a judge in Suffolk County, Long Island, who was a brand new judge at the time. So we didn't know what he was all about. He's still on the bench and he's absolutely crazy. And I won't mention his name. So I have a friend who's an attorney in the city. And whenever she has a case out in Suffolk County, she'll ask me to be of counsel to her because she doesn't know the judges. She doesn't know the attorneys out there. She feels like a fish out of water. So I was with her of counsel, and there was a court appearance for a motion. I know that you don't know what that is, but it's an application that an attorney makes to a judge for certain relief while you're still in the middle of your case. It's not at the end of the case. Okay. And so she called me up and she said, listen, I can't get out there. I'm on trial in New York City. I'm going to send you the paperwork that we were served with. Can you make the appearance? Absolutely. And I go up against this young attorney who was really a green pea, a real green pea. And she was a nasty person. And she was tried to intimidate us since the beginning of the case. You know, my colleague who I was of counsel to is practicing as long as I am. I'm 70 years old. Think about how much experience I have. Okay, back then I wasn't that old, but I was still way more experienced than this little green pea who's now going to try to intimidate.
Did you say you're 70?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, off topic, I would never have guessed that. I would never have guessed that.
I just turned 70 in November.
Awesome.
So, and I'm proud of it. So we get in front of the judge, and the judge says, okay, call your first witness. And I said, what, judge? We weren't on for a trial. We weren't on for a hearing. He said, well, that's my rules. My rules are if you make an application to me, a motion for relief, the day you have to come in to submit that motion, you're trying this. I said, wow, where are those rules, Judge? He says, I haven't posted them yet. So we had no idea that this was going to happen. So I said, all right, okay. Now she made the motion. So she had, no, I apologize. We made the motion. So I said, okay, but Judge, I don't have the file. So I don't have any exhibits with me. I only have the motion with the exhibits. I need to pull the motion apart and make copies for exhibits for the court. My adversary is standing there crying, crying. Judge, I need an adjournment. I'm not ready to try this. And at this point, because she was so nasty, and so now I'm going to educate you. Now you're going to deal with this crazy judge, and you're going to have to figure it out. I'm not standing next to you and saying, give her the adjournment, Judge. I'll consent. I'm not doing that. So because I was willing and confident in myself to go forward, that got me 20 steps ahead. And now she has to panic. I think that had she been a little more humble from the beginning, I wouldn't have done that. I would have helped her out, not to the detriment of my client, don't get me wrong, but I would have said to the judge, Judge, your rules are not posted yet. We didn't know we had to go to a hearing. I don't have the file with me. Please give us a few days. Give me till tomorrow to come back. I would have done that and helped her out. You shouldn't burn your bridges. I don't care whether you're experienced or not. Don't burn your bridges because you have to deal with these people again and again and again. No matter what they throw at you, you can't burn your bridges. You have to find a way to take a breath and move forward to not make enemies. When I have a case against a tough opponent, sometimes at the beginning, we're at each other's throats. Sometimes at the beginning, you have to call your position. You know what I mean? You do a little bit of posturing because you have to say, okay, I'm letting you know. You may think you're tough, but I'm tougher. I'm tougher. No, I'm tougher. And we go at each other. And eventually we become friends. Because if we're going to settle this case, we have to work together. We have to have the same goal. We may have different positions in that goal. I want the best for my client. You want the best for your client. But we have to have the same goal of these people don't want to spend $500,000 on legal fees. Let's try to get them to the end of their finish. At some point in time, there are attorneys out there, for example, who nobody gets along with. I get along with them. Not always. I didn't always get along with them, but I do because we've been able to say, at some point, our clients are going to leave us because the case is over. And even though a lot of times these clients, you should know, will say things to me like, oh my God, I've been with you for 2 years. How am I going to get through life without you? Will you be my friend?
Yeah.
People will say these crazy things to me. And I'll always say yes, and it never really happens. They move on, and that's the way it should be. But once they leave you, you still have to deal with those attorneys who are on the other side of another case. Or maybe we just see each other at a committee meeting. Or maybe we just see each other walking through the halls of the courthouse. It also is very impressive to my clients when I'm standing in the courthouse and everybody that walks by me says, hi, Amy, stops and gives me a kiss, hello, shakes my hand, gives me a hug. When that happens, they feel so proud. Oh my God, you know everybody here. A very long time ago, an older attorney said to me, anytime you go to a courthouse that you've never been to before, make sure you know before your client gets there where the ladies' room is and the men's room. Because if you don't, and you're in the courthouse with them for the first time, and they say, "Oh, I need to use the restroom," and you don't know where it is, they know you've never been there before. And that's pretty scary for them. Scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. It's
Yeah.
funny.
So one of the reasons why I think it's important to find some kind of common ground with these attorneys who nobody gets along with is because that relationship, it's not a relationship where I'm going to dinner with these people, but the relationship where we can say hello to one another, where we can be cordial to one another is impressive to your clients. And you're always trying to impress your client because that's who you're working for. You're not working for a boss. When you're an entrepreneur, you're not working for a boss. You're working, quote unquote, for yourself, but you're working for wherever your revenue is coming from. So you have to keep impressing that revenue source, whether it's giving them a perfect product, whether it's giving them perfect representation, whether it is whatever it is, but you need to continue to keep impressing them. Like I know in sales, the big expression is always be closing. Well, always be impressing who it is that you're representing or what you're representing, your merchandise, your service, whatever it is. And make sure that the cast of characters they're on your side to a certain extent. They, in a case where I'm beating up the other side, if my adversary's client turns to my adversary and says, "Can't stand that bitch," and they say something, I can walk away from that with my adversary calling me on the phone after we get in our cars and saying, "Hey, listen, ignore what my client said. I love you." That kind of thing. And I mean, I could tell you some stories, but I don't know how risque to get on this. But I've had clients who have called me to say, "You know what my husband said about you?" And some of the stuff is kind of disgusting. And I can call my adversary and say, I have to tell you what your client said. And I did this in one particular instance. And my adversary said to me, he started to laugh and he said, "Boy, that means you're really going to beat up my client now, aren't you?" I said, "That's my motivation." And he just gave me my motivation.
That's funny. That is too funny.
So I think that the difference between an entrepreneur as opposed to a professional practice like law is when you're an entrepreneur, you don't really have those adversaries. You're mostly pulling together your the sources that are going to bring you money and being the best at whatever it is that you're producing to get those people to buy into what you're doing. In law, it's a little bit different because we're not selling a product. We're really selling our time, which is very hard for a client to understand. When they have a big bill with us and they say things like, "I don't understand how this has cost me $10,000 when I'm not done with my case. I'm not divorced." And the answer to that is, you're not done with your case, but I'm not selling the end product. I didn't sell the end product. I sold my time. So that if I'm talking to you for 15 minutes, you're going to get charged for 15 minutes of my time, even though that telephone call did not produce a judgment of divorce. That's the way it goes, as opposed to other businesses where you're selling a widget for $20. You give them the widget, they give you the $20. In fact, sometimes it's even works the other way. You pay me first before I give you the widget. Like a lot of times I'll give the example to my clients. If I sold you a couch, you would pay me in full before that couch would walk through your door. That's the way it works. I'm not selling couches. I'm selling my time. You're hoping that the end of my time is going to produce the thing that you want, which is ultimately to be divorced or to get child support or custody or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But and you have to feel confident, client, that my way of doing this, the time that I'm putting in on your case is going to produce the result that you're hoping for. It's a different kind of mentality
Yeah.
in this business than it is in other businesses.
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely see that. Yeah, I definitely can. And Amy, you touched on a lot of good points. And even, with two different, like you were just saying, two different mentalities, in the professional law practice industry and the entrepreneurial route of, really not going into law, but a different route, whatever it may be, selling products, selling merchandise, whatever it may be. What would you say to our audiences, whichever route that they go, through the challenges, through the little wins, or even through those moments where, I'm sure that you felt this too, where you feel like you're taking 3 steps forward. It feels amazing. But then life happens, things happen, and all of a sudden you took 6 steps back. And what would you say to our audiences on how to really overcome those challenges and those struggles? And even if those little wins are feeling like they're not going in the right direction, and how to like switch your mentality to stack up those little wins. What do you have to say to our audience about really all those challenges that come in with the entrepreneurial route, the professional law route, the mentality, how to get through it?
Well, first of all, what I've already said was be confident in who you are.
Yeah.
Second, you need to know your product. You need to know, for me, I need to know the law. I need to know how to negotiate. You need to hone get your skills, be confident in those. And then when those setbacks come, and they do, I mean, I've had to move offices in a rush. I was working with a man who got suspended from the practice of law. I had 2 weeks to reinvent my life. The first thing you have to say to yourself is, okay, this is just money. I can make more of that. There are other things I can't do. I can't fix. I can't fix somebody's health. I can't fix somebody's loss, God forbid. But I can make more money. That I can always do. Okay. So that once you feel good about that and you know that you're going to be able to redo what you already did, but it fell apart and now you got to do it again. You just have to roll up your sleeves and do it. Don't cry over spilled milk, to use a cliche. Don't look to somebody else to say, oh, woe is me. Now what? You did it already. You can do it again. There is no end to what you can do. If you want to reach the sky, then you just have to keep climbing up those stairs. Nothing can stop you. If you have that mentality, you can do it. If you want that end game, you can do it. You just have to roll up your sleeves and do what you know how to do. We don't realize that we come into these professions and businesses with a whole life experience from birth till the time we open these businesses. And that life experience, you need to call on those strengths in order to get to the place where you can feel confident that you can again resurrect what maybe was once there and maybe it took a few steps backwards. Just keep going. Don't get into your bed, put your head on your pillow and say, I'm not getting out of this because, oh, woe is me. Look at what life did to me. You cannot do that if you want to be successful in business, in your profession, or whatever else it is that you do.
You hear that, everybody? When you do play the victim mentality on yourself, it's really just cutting off blessing for yourself. It's cutting off opportunities. It's closing the doors that are opening up that you may not even realize it. When you play the victim route, it really closes all those off. So don't do that. Just don't do that. I mean, really, just keep going. Just like what Amy is saying, just keep going. And Amy, I really do have to say that really this conversation has been absolutely amazing. And before we do part ways for today, because I feel like I'll be honest with you, Amy, I feel like I want a round two with you because I feel like there's just so much more to dive into, so many other stories I feel like would actually be very informative be very formal and also very informational for us. But how can our audience find you? Do you guys have any social media, website, email? How can they find you and reach you?
So I'm a partner at the law firm called Capitola and Divins, and our website is Capitola and Divins PC, or Capitola and Divins Law. Either way, you can get to us. And I'm on Long Island. I'm in Nassau County in Williston Park. You want the phone number?
Oh,
You
I
need the
please
phone?
do.
Yeah.
Yes.
516-7, and I'm in Williston Park in Nassau County, but I go to all of the courts. I practice in all of the courts and I have contacts all over the place as well. So, yeah, anytime anybody wants to reach out to me, even just for advice or encouragement or whatever it is, I'm more than happy to talk. I love mentoring people. One of the things I love about this firm is I do mentor most of the associates here, and I love it. I love watching them succeed. I love watching them grow. That's part of the fun of it for me.
Oh, well, thank you again, Amy, for sharing that. And really for any other business owners listening, if you'd like to share your story, spotlight your company, build some great content for your brand, we love to have you on the next episode. Feel free to reach out to us on whichever platform you're seeing this, viewing this, and let us know. We love to consider you for the next episode. We're always looking to highlight mission driven entrepreneurs doing great work, and just like Amy here. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. And Amy, thank you so much for your time. And
I,
I really do have to reach out to you again because I do feel like a part two would be amazing for not even just for myself talking with you, but also for our audience. And I really do thank you so much for your time today.
you're very welcome, and it was my pleasure.
All right, everyone. See you on the next episode of Fix My Fees podcast.